a little over a month or that these have been in this seed tray. Well, I want to get these guys out of here since there's only about 7 of them or 8 of them that are viable to put in a cup. So I'm going to up pot these guys. Up potting or stepping up is the same thing. And then I have some giant jalapeno plants down here. And I have 2 in this cell, 2 in this cell. This one's toast. And then this one right here. So I have 5 pepper plants that I want to do. So, hold on. There you are. So I'm gonna step those up today. So I want to share that with you. So give me 1 second so I can set this. Alrighty. This is my grow medium. This is the same exact stuff that I use for starting my seeds. It is peat, perlite, and vermiculite. I step my plants up into their cups with the same grow medium as I do when I start the seeds. The reason being is because I always have tons of extra, and I don't find that it's necessary to spend money on some potting soil when these plants are going to be housed in these cups for about 1 month before I start selling them or before I start putting them in the ground myself. And in the meantime, since there's no nutrition in this, I can start fertilizing them now that they're in their cups. When they're in their cups, I can fertilize them, but I also cut my fertilizer to half strength. So if the fertilizer reads 1 tablespoon per gallon, I'm putting less than that in the gallon. I'm doing about a half tablespoon per gallon. So how I'm starting these is I'm just filling my cups up just a little bit. You got to make sure you cut a hole in the bottom of your cups. I took a drill, literally went through all of them at the same time as far as my drill bit would go. I put a little hole in the bottom so it has proper drainage when I water them. The reason you want drainage in the bottom is because you don't want them to sit in water. Roots do not like to be drowning and swimming in water. They will get root bound and they will rot and they will die. So if your plant leaves start to turn yellow, that's a good indication that you have too much water on your plants. So either they're not draining properly or you're just watering them way too much. So I always fill up my cups a little bit before I get started. And this is how I start. With these peppers, I'm just going to go ahead and pull these 2 peppers out. And they have that little root ball. Just like that. So I'm going to wiggle them and pull. I bang it against the wall to knock some of that dirt off. And they have root balls attached. So what I do is I tip my cup sideways and I bang it a little bit so that when you look in the cup, it looks like that. I slide my hand in my cup and then I put that root ball all the way down the side of the cup just like that. And I hold it on the side because I want those roots to reach the bottom. That's the reason that I do that. I kind of push this dirt over. And then once I get that root ball down to the bottom, I scoot the pepper plant over and I cover the foliage like that so I protect it. And then I just pile it in with more soil. Now, pepper plants, you're not necessarily supposed to bury them like you can a tomato, but when they are seedlings, I do tend to bury them a little bit. So that is what my pepper plant looks like, and that is a giant jalapeno. And now it's in its own cup with its own hole so I can start feeding them. I also made my plant markers already before I started this. This is backwards, I know, but it says giant jalapeno. It says 311, and then it also says 420, which 311 is the day I started it, And 420 is the day that I'm stepping it up, and I stick it right in there. So when I put that in the ground, I stick that plant marker right in the ground, right next to my pepper. Now I'm going to go ahead and do my second one because he's right here. Just bang my plant, or bang my cup. Get it nice and flat like that. Take my pepper. Slide the root ball down to the bottom. Hold on to the foliage so I don't break that off. Put more soil in that cup. Bang it down. And then you want to pack that nice and tight. So I stand my pepper up and I just smash down the soil around my pepper plant. Like that. And that's my second one. So I'm just going to get my next plant marker and stick that in there just like that. So he's good to go. I have 2 more in the same kind of cell situation. There's 2 here. Now peppers, when you plant them in the garden, something you can know. If you know what the square footage looks like or the inch space looks like on a 5-gallon bucket, 2 pepper plants can go in 1 5-gallon bucket. Peppers do like to be close together. They say that peppers like to hold hands. So that's kind of what peppers like to do. They like to be close together. So 2 peppers can go in a 5-gallon bucket. And you need to give them a little support sometimes, because sometimes, like bell peppers, they tend to weigh down the plant. So I actually use tomato cages for my peppers. I never use tomato cages for tomatoes because I grow my tomatoes vertically and I prune them really well so they get nice and tall. There's no way my tomatoes would be able to hold up to a tomato cage. So just remember that when you're planting your peppers, plant them close together. Put 2 side by side in your garden. Make the most of your grow space in your garden. You can plant them close together. There we go. And jalapeno. And I got 1 more jalapeno. He's in his own little cell, so I don't have to break apart his roots. He's got a nice little root ball. Slide that down in there. I like the process of stepping up the plants because I know that it's the time that I get to feed them. And you got to think about it. If you're not feeding your plants, how are they going to feed you? That's how I look at it. So definitely make sure you take the time to feed your plants with some fertilizer. But when you are feeding them in individual cups like this, make sure you cut the fertilizer in half. All right, so for the tomatoes, I'm basically doing the same thing. I am going to pull the root system out. Look at that one. Like, that's pitiful. I just ripped the whole root system right out of the ground. But guess what? I'm still going to plant that because tomatoes are very forgiving. And tomatoes, they can be buried. I actually plant tomatoes. Sometimes I will plant it like this in its cup all the way up to the foliage. And as that plant grows, I'm going to continue to add soil to the top because I'm going to start bottom water feeding these, which means I'm not going to pour water in the top of this to water it anymore. I'm going to set it in a tray and I'm going to fill the tray so that the water wicks up from the bottom hole. So it forces the roots to stretch down and grow stronger to get to that water. So as this tomato is growing up, I'm going to fill this cup up with water. So it's just something to keep in mind when you are stepping up your plants. So that's my first John tomato in his new little home. I'm going to go ahead and use one of my plant markers as a little spoon to scoop out the next one. And that worked much better. So that's the next one. And these, I'm making sure I get that root ball all the way to the bottom. If you take a really good look at your tomato plants, you'll notice that the stems are fuzzy. It's almost like they have whiskers. And what that is roots. And all that stem is telling us is that it wants to be on the ground and it wants to be grabbing dirt so it can get more nutrients out of the soil. So I'm going to go ahead and plant him all the way in there as low as I can to those leaves that are sticking out. And then I'm going to stick the plant marker. Same thing. I packed it nice and tight. There's a hole on the bottom, and as soon as he grows a little bit bigger, I'll fill this cup up with more water because the stems are fuzzy. I'm going to try to show that to you in this next one here. Hold on. I don't know if that'll focus. Let's see. You can see them a little bit. How it's a little bit fuzzy. Maybe not. You can see it if the light's held behind it, but I'm not a professional camera person. Shoving that root ball all the way down to the bottom. See what my tomato looks like in there? That root ball is all the way sitting down in the bottom. Then I cover the foliage because I don't want it to break. And I shove more dirt in there. Just like that. Pack it in. Flip it around. Pack that side in. And he's buried nice and deep, so he doesn't even come over the top of the cup. Look at that. So he's got some room to grow before I add some more dirt. And I got a couple more here. Tomatoes are the same when you plant them in the garden. They have fuzzy stems and they're going to get nice and tall. And when you plant them in the ground, you can trim all of the leaves off your tomato plant from the dirt up and leave about 3 sets of leaves at the very top and plant that tomato in your ground really, 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 really deep. Because the stronger the root system for your tomatoes, the stronger and more production your plant will give you. Something to keep in mind. I had some cherry tomatoes last year that were almost 2 feet tall when I was selling them. And people were like, yeah, I'm so excited. I want that really tall plant. And I'm like, no, because I would suggest that you bury it. When I explained to them how to bury that thing in the ground so that they can get better production with their cherry tomatoes, they thought I was quite crazy. But a lot of people that bought my plants, I did follow-up phone calls with them to make sure that their plants were doing well, and they said that they were really nervous when they buried the plant, but they were excited to see what was going to happen. And I have done side-by-side comparisons on just planting a plant in the ground. And then I've done a side-by-side comparison with one that I buried super deep. And they do make a difference if you plant them really deep. Oh, I snapped that root ball off also. But we're going to try. We're going to stick it in the dirt and see what happens. I had a tomato plant that got broken off in a storm last year. And I propagated it in some water. It grew more roots and I planted it again and it continued to grow. That was kind of cool. This one was super short. So he's got a lot of room to grow in my cup and I'll keep filling it up with soil. And I only have one left. Let's undig him. This This is a nice looking tomato plant. This tomato last year grew like 6 and 8 ounce tomatoes, round, red, not a lot of disease. Pollinators were all over it. But this was a really nice plant. I liked growing this one. It was a surprise, I guess. You know, getting the seeds from somebody that told me the story about how they came from Italy. That's a nice one. So I only have about 8 of those this year, so I'll probably only sell 2 and keep the rest for myself because they're pretty special to me. So that's how I do my seed starting. I got one of these, you know, Sterilite tubs from Goodwill. I use this as my work area when I'm stepping up, and then I just put these all on a tray so that I can put them in the greenhouse. And that's what my plan is. I'm running out of space in my grow room, so because I'm running out of space in the grow room, I have to use my greenhouses. So after these next 2 days, it's supposed to get down like into the high 20s, like 28, 29 tonight. The forecast for the next 10 days is only 40 degrees at night, which is okay. I mean, tomatoes will survive in a greenhouse with 40 degrees, but during the day, they're going to get a lot of sunshine in those greenhouses. I even bought a shade tarp just in case it gets a little too warm for them. I do have a thermometer hanging out there so I can kind of keep my eye on it. And plus, I can open the doors if it gets too cold. But also, I want to keep some of the heat in there before the sun gets off of them so that they can stay nice and toasty warm at nighttime. My peppers, I will probably keep them all inside because they like the warmth and they like the heat. So I'm going to keep them indoors until, at least until the end of May. Our planting time isn't until the end of, no, Mother's Day is our planting time. So we'll just keep our eye on the forecast and see what happens. But we have over 2,800 plants to step up in the next 3 or 4 days. So wish us luck. It's a lot of plants, but we're really excited to have grown. I think I have 28 varieties of heirlooms, 17 varieties of peppers. Shishitos are a new one this year that I'm growing. I love shishito peppers, and so I'm so excited for the production of those. I want to make sure that I baby those guys because I love those peppers. And I wish you the best in your gardening adventures. Thank you so much for watching. Again, I'm Michelle with Garden Jargon. If you're new to my channel, thank you for checking in and learning how to step up some plants. If you have any questions or comments, please do so below. I'd be happy to answer them if I get them. And what else? Oh, if you've seen my channel before, thanks for coming back and supporting me. That makes me feel really happy. Please share my videos with anybody that you know that's gardening and needs any tips and tricks, and check out the other videos on my channel. I have quite a few. I try to do as much as I can, at least 2 or 3 videos a week. So have a great rest of your night, guys. Again, it is April 20th. Today's weather was like 35, 40 degrees and chilly. We got a little cold spell here, and hopefully it'll keep warming up for the rest of the season. We'll see you in the next video. Take care and God bless.